In this lesson, we are going to be multiplying and dividing fractions, but right now we're going to actually just focus on the multiplying, and we'll do a second video that relates to the dividing. So when we multiply or divide fractions, specifically when we multiply fractions such as a half and a fourth, if you're going to multiply them together, you're really just going to multiply the top times the top on the fractions and the bottom times the bottom on the fraction. It's not like adding and subtracting. You don't need common denominators, which is great. You basically can just take 1 over 2 times 1 over 4, and it's just top times top is 1, bottom times bottom is 8. Okay, so that's nice, right? Like that's a good thing that we don't have to get common denominators. It's very straightforward. However, you can do some things like when you have stuff like this, when you multiply all these tops together and all the bottoms together, you're going to get some pretty big numbers. So we're going to start with kind of a smaller version of this. Is before you actually multiply the top and the top together and the bottom to get bottom together, you should simplify before multiplying. Simplify, I gotta spell it right. Simplify before multiply. All right, what that means is that on any fraction, you're going to want to simplify. So we can do that beforehand. Now you can do it at the end, but you don't have to. So let me show you two different routes here. So if you did 1/3 times 3/5, right, that's going to get you, if you multiply the top and the top together, that's going to get you a 3. Bottom and bottom is going to get you a 15. And then we're going to look to simplify. And when you simplify, it's always something on top with something on the bottom. So you're looking for a common factor that you can divide out of both of them. So we could divide a 3 out of both of them. So if you divide a 3 out of the 3, you get a 1. If you divide a 3 out of the 15, you get a 5. So final answer is 1/5. But you could make this, especially when you're going to get to these type, a little bit easier for yourself. Another way that I always do it is I simplify before I multiply. And remember that when you're simplifying, you're looking for a common factor with a top value and a bottom value, something in the numerator, something in the denominator. Well, this right here, you can simplify. So you have a 3 that you can take out of something on the top with something on the bottom. So we could take a 3 out of both of them, which make both of them 1s. And so you're left with 1 times 1 and 1 times 5. I find that easier to do is to simplify it first and then multiply it, as opposed to trying to put all these together first off. And I don't know what that is, but I can simplify a whole lot of things. So let me do a different version of that first, and then we'll get to that one. So I'm going to start with taking the 2 and looking and seeing if the 2 can go into any of these other numbers on the bottom, if they have a common factor. And you have a 6. So that 2 and that 6, you can simplify. I can divide a 2 out of both of them. That would make a 1, and that would make a 3. All right. Then I would go to the next numerator, a 5. And a 5 does not go into anything on the bottom, and then a 1 will never be able to do anything with. So basically I'm done. And it also guarantees if I've taken care of every single number on the top and compared it to every single number on the bottom, and if I can't simplify anything else, I won't be able to simplify my final answer either. So if I multiply all the tops together, I got a 1 times 5 times 1 is 1. And then a 3 times 9 times 3. I'll do the 3 and the 3 together first, which is 9 times the other 9 makes 81. I don't know where the 1 came from. Let's try that again. That's a 1 times 5 times 1 is 5. All right. So on this one, we would get some pretty big numbers on the top and even bigger numbers on the bottom, and then try to simplify it. Instead, let's just start picking away at things. I have a 2 on the top here. It's not going to go into the 5. It's not going to go into the 21, but it will go into the 12. So I can divide a 2 out of the top and the bottom, right? And then actually, I'm going to skip the 10 for a second because I see the 6 here and the 6 here. I can basically cancel each other out and make them both 1s. All right, so those two numbers are done, those two tops. Now I can look at the 10. Is there anything that you can simplify out of the bottom with the top? Well, the 5 and the 10 both have a common factor of 5. So I can make that, divide that by 5 and make it a 1, divide that by 5 and make it a 2. It's kind of blending in the other. So I have a 1 times 2, and the 2, the only thing left on the bottom is a 21, and there isn't anything that goes into 2 and 21. So we have a 1 times 2 times 1, which is 1. And then we have a 1 times 21 times 1. Did it again. 1 times 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 21 times 1 is 21. Okay. So basically, same idea is going to happen on all of them. The difference when you start getting mixed numbers is you really need to turn them into just pure fractions. All right. So that's kind of universal. And you'll see that we do that when we do division as well. So multiplication or division, you really just need a fraction times a fraction, not a mixed number times mixed number. It doesn't work that way. So we need to turn this into a mixed number. So that's going to become 3 over 1. And this is going to be 4 times 3 plus 1 is 13 over 3. Okay, so now we're going back to the same thing, but before we do the top times top, bottom times bottom, I'm going to simplify the 3's. And then I'm just left with a 13 on the top multiplied together and a 1 on the bottom, which just makes 13. All right, and then over here, same thing. I need them to be just regular numbers. So 2 times 2 plus 1 is 5 over 2. And then 5 times 3 is 15 plus 1 is 16 over 3. And before I multiply, I'm going to simplify the 2 and the 16. I can take a 2 out of both and make that a 1 and an 8. And then the 5 can't simplify into anything, and the 8 can't simplify anything else. So we multiply together, and we get a 40 over 3. I will say most likely that if you have your numbers start as mixed numbers, you're going to want to take this out to a mixed number as well. So I'm going to figure out how many times 3 goes into 40. 3 goes into 40 13 times, which is 39. And then I have a 1 left over. Now, if you needed to, like, I'm not sure how that worked out. Let me calculate this thing. So I'm going to see 40 divided by 3. Okay, so there's my 13. Now you got to figure out what the fraction is of that. And some people will be okay with it, but you don't have to. So here's what you can do. So 3 goes into 40 13 times. So I'll take 13 times 3. So then I subtract the 39 from the 40, and that's what gets me my remainder, basically, which is the 1. So that's why it's 1/3. Okay. Last two things are taking a fraction and raising it to a power. The great thing about this is it's very straightforward. Remember that squared just means there's 2 of them. So it's really 2/3 times 2/3. Exponents are shortcuts for repeated multiplication. So 2/3 times 2/3. So that's going to get us 4 minutes. That's it. And then 1/2 cubed just means 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 2 2 2 is 8. Okay, that was multiplying fractions. Next video is going to finish up with doing division of fractions.